Welcome to A Call to Healing. I'm your host, Melanie McDaniel. I am really excited to share this interview with Dodge Feeler. He's a friend and the founder of Way of Life Wellness. Our conversation begins with practical information about peptides and other healing tools, but we end on a very raw and authentic note. Dodge shares a song with us, so please listen through to the end. A Call to Healing is sponsored by Senavida, a platform helping practitioners spend more time in service and less time in the back office. Hey, Dodge Feeler, welcome to A Call to Healing. I'm so happy you're here.
Hey, Melanie, thank you for having me. I really appreciate the invite, and I'm excited to have our talk today.
Let's get started kind of with your background, however much you want to share. Who are you? Where are you from? What do you do? And anything in between.
Well, I grew up in West Texas in Odessa, so a lot of oil field out there. And my dad was an English professor, so we were fortunately pushed kind of into the culture of arts and everything. And I actually grew up homeschooled, so I had a very different upbringing than most. And as I grew up, I was also around healthcare a lot. My uncle was in physical therapy, so that's actually where I started at the age of 16, caring for patients. And I really never knew what I wanted to do, and that kind of showed me that I do enjoy helping people and just holding space. And so I went into the oil field. I always wanted to move out of Odessa, just is desert and there's not much water and trees. And I've always been someone who really just needs to connect to nature to find my center. And so I eventually moved to Central Texas after going to nursing school. And then I became a nurse practitioner where I've worked as a hospitalist in San Antonio. I've worked in hormone therapy, hair restoration surgery. And now I am the founder of Way of Life Wellness, where I still work as a nurse practitioner there part of the time. And, I've been through a divorce, which really kind of made me hit my rock bottom. I had some just numbing and running that kind of came from drinking, where a lot of stuff just really doesn't have a hold on me now. And now I spend my time with my family, where I have my 6-month-old Archie, who's about to be 7 months, and then my daughter Stella, who's my stepdaughter, and my beautiful wife Victoria. And now it's just about continuing to kind of grow that vision and be with my family as much as possible and bring them up the best that I can, and getting to build community with amazing humans like yourself.
Yes. Yeah, I'm so grateful that our paths crossed for sure. So
Right.
we started, actually, I was introduced to you because of peptides. And so let's talk a little bit about Way of Life Wellness. That's Way of Life.
Yes.
And kind of your journey to creating that name, because I know there's a little bit of story there, but already I've learned so much about you that I didn't even know. So this is going to be fun. But let's talk about
Sure.
Way of Life Wellness.
So, Way of Life came about because I was very into bodybuilding, which you did hear me speak on Saturday, where growing up, there was some bullying. We all go through traumatic things in childhood. And so I just always I wanted to be stronger. I had cousins that would beat up on me, which is, I think, something that happens with a lot of people, especially if you're in West Texas. And so as time went on, I needed to build this body of armor. Not so much that I wanted to be a fighter, although I've been in quite a few. It was more of just don't mess with me, because I had walls, and yeah, it became a whole thing. But then as I went through a divorce and I started like really looking at just patterns and trauma and even just what I'd done to other people, I realized like really what I wanted was to live well. And I want the people around me to live well. And that does come with lifestyle and, fueling your body with proper nutrients, connecting to the sun, grounding. And then, of course, I found peptides because I tore my bicep in bodybuilding. I was deadlifting and I partially tore my bicep. And I've been studying them. Just, bodybuilders, they tend to look at all signs on how do I get bigger? How do I recover faster? And then how do I not kill myself in the act? Which I never competed or anything, but I did work with bodybuilding coaches where I did get to about 250 pounds at one point. And when I was going through that divorce, just there's a lot of anger, a lot of need to control something. I definitely still cared for all my patients, but it was built somewhat out of anger and just a way to make more money to prepare for that divorce. And even just, I was told no on getting a raise at my current business, which there's no blame or anything. It's just the way it goes. So it was a way to make money, But also just I had been doing protocols and workout plans and advice on supplements and everything else for years. And most of the time when I would do them, I'd hand them over and they would say, "You have to do all that? Oh, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to do it." So I found a way to actually make money while doing something that I really love doing. And it evolved as I met my wife and I just started kind of, I mean, I don't love the word downloads, but I was kind of getting downloads of what I wanted to look like for my family, which was I wanted my wife to be able to take care of my children. And then I also wanted to be with my children regularly. Most days she's with them the majority of the day, but I often get to pop in and be in their life. I put my son to bed. I sleep with him most of the night, or well, he sleeps in his crib, but it's a whole thing. I just say all that because it evolved to love, a bigger vision where my team is slowly coming in to help me be able to help others heal and just live as well as you possibly can in America, where, as you know, the food, minerals are depleted, vitamins are depleted. We're not doing a very good job of regenerating the soil. We're told to hide from the sun. We spend most of our time in LED lights, which I have one up right now. And so it's funny because as we progress as a society, we're needing more and more just to sustain ourselves, to progress faster. So I guess my ultimate vision is definitely to be able to help others heal and recover from just the ongoing pathophysiological problems that come with constant screens and chemicals and all the things in our water. And eventually, I'd love to see it evolve to retreats, a bigger community, and really just whatever's supposed to come out of it, because my vision is never as good as the greater mind.
Yeah. So it sounds like you've got a lot of education from maybe the bodybuilding world as far as supplements. Compared to your nurse practitioner training, where where do you think the most valuable information was, or is it a little bit of both, or a lot of bit of
It's
both?
definitely It's a little bit of both for sure. I learned a lot about how the body works in physical therapy, and then obviously building a body where I think I was about 145 when I first started lifting weights around 16. And so, that's almost 100 pounds of mass that I put on. So I had to learn a lot that way. But then in nursing, I learned a ton about just how organs work, just all of the different biological aspects that happen. I've always been amazed about how the heart, it kind of works independently of the rest of the body. And so it's kind of hard to say which one, but I would say probably just the love of bodybuilding. And, I also have always loved plants and learning about herbs and thinking holistically. So I kind of have just a big hodgepodge of things that I've always been passionate about in terms of health. So bodybuilding probably brought me where I am now, but it's just really been a combination of everything that's unfolded as my life has continued on this journey.
Yeah. So what is your focus now? Do you help bodybuilders, or is it more like all these other things you're talking about, like holistic sort of approach? What is the focus now, or the interest?
We work mostly on referrals, so we get a mix. I do have some bodybuilders, not a ton. It's usually more business owners that have kind of wrecked their lives in terms of the bodybuilding side through building a business, and then we're helping them sort of come back to a healthy place. And then they want to see, how do I bring back vitality? How do I get stronger? How do I become more functional? So that's one niche that we have. We also get a lot of women. Interestingly, it seems like it's really hard for females to get help with hormones. So surprisingly, when I started this business, I've had more women than I had men coming through. And so that's pushed me to learn more and more about the cycle. And so sometimes it's a menopausal woman. But then I also get a lot of women who they have 3 kids at home and, there's high stress. And so we're just helping them live their best life. So it's a very wide range of humans. Uh, I would say now it's probably about 60-40 for men and women. And that's not an exact number, but that would be my guess.
So what are the tools when you get these burnt out CEOs or something? What's kind of the first step, or the first things you start working on with them?
Typically, we'll start with lab work just to look at inflammatory markers, check their hormones, see how's the thyroid's functioning. Do they have a large toxin load, which you're usually going to see that through checking the liver and the kidneys. And then we dig through their lifestyle and we find out, what are they eating? What are they doing to work out? And even just, I would say mindset, which is also kind of a trendy term, but how are they thinking about things? and their daily habits. And so I sometimes get a very strange look when I say, well, one of the things I really want you to do is find some time, preferably in the morning, go outside barefoot and put your feet in the dirt and take a look at the sun coming up, or watching the sunset. Just because, I mean, that just dipping back into that mundane and connecting back to nature, it's that's sort of ground zero, because peptides are amazing. If you need testosterone or something like that, that can be amazing. But if you aren't taking care of those basics of learning how to regulate your nervous system and spend time with the people that matter the most, none of the rest, like nothing else of that is going to really.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of breath work. I've had some profound experiences, with like holotropic, but it's even just, when I'm about to speak, I will take a very deep breath and I let it all out, because we forget breath is life. Uh, I also teach a lot about just finding ways to express, because when you're spending all your time in meetings and you're grinding away, you forget that there is an art inside of you that actually does want to be expressed. And it's inside all of us. A lot of us choose not to recognize it. I personally sort of ignored it, which is a little funny, because my parent, well, my dad, well, my mom is pretty artistic too, but my brother and my dad are both very artistic. And I just sort of thought, that's not me. Living in West Texas was not necessarily a cool thing to do. So, I mean, most people that come in, there are mental health aspects to it as well. So I'll just start with journaling. Start journaling some, and then even just teaching someone to hum and to kind of hear their voice and get to know it. And we start there. It's just really getting to the basics, and some listen, and it's amazing to see. And then some, they stick with the peptides and everything else. But the best results are usually the ones who are doing all of it. Like my business partner, he's not really jumped into music, but he is actually a pretty artistic person. But at where he was at, he was just working nonstop. And there are days that he's working on a Sunday. I was like, Oscar, I need you to go on a hike right now. I need you to stop whatever you're doing. Yes, we want to get this done, but none of us are going to be good with an empty cup. And I need you alive, and I need you healthy and well.
So moving from some of those basics, what kind of is the next when people are seeking or there's some healing? Obviously, there's a wide range, but kind of what's next? Hormones and peptides, or diet, exercise, or like what's kind of the arc of the healing journey typically?
So once we do labs and we do a full consult, my wellness coordinator and I, he digs deeper into the lifestyle. So we send a protocol, and it's going to look at what their actual needs. So it's going to have dietary suggestions, some supplements. And I mean, every single person is different. Some patients are looking for peptides. More and more they are, because it's becoming so popular. But it's usually, if they need hormones, then we're going to start them on some hormones, and then usually 1 to 2 peptides that seem indicated. And we do regular check-ins with them. They get ongoing messaging with us. So if something's not working or something's working well, we're able to capture that and to just sort of support them on their journey.
What are some of I know there's a lot of peptides that have popularity, but what are some kind of the basic ones? And I know it depends on what people are looking for. I'm
Sure.
just trying to do like a basic education of what's out there.
Yeah. I mean, I think the one that's probably the most popular is BPC 157. It's sort of been around for a while. Uh, it's something that it stands for body protective component. So it actually is something, it's in the gastric juices of our stomach. But that one alone, it can be very helpful for patients with stomach issues, whether it's, they have like small intestinal bowel overgrowth and there's just tons of inflammation, or they've had digestive issues for a long time. That can be powerful. Or if they have some injuries, it can help a lot with different muscle tears or ongoing inflammatory disorders, and even autoimmune diseases. So that's sort of the gateway peptide that I think a lot of patients hear about. And then obviously you have like the GLPs like tirzepatide or semaglutide, which we really don't use much semaglutide anymore. But I mean, those are the most popular, because with America, we have a pretty large obesity issue. And so those have become really big. The difference with the GLPs and the other peptides is most of the other peptides, they are not largely supported by the pharmaceutical industry, where this one, the GLPs, are very deeply researched. But the interesting with the GLPs is it also helps a lot with inflammation. I've seen it help a lot with different, again, autoimmune diseases by decreasing inflammation. I've seen it help with fertility, uh, just a wide range of things, or even just sometimes as we grow, we kind of reach for food as a way to comfort ourselves. It's a way that we sort of deal with our traumas or our patterns, or, obviously carbs can decrease cortisol, and it can also improve dopamine. So food becomes sort of a coping mechanism. And so sometimes quieting that food noise and reducing your appetite, you're able to kind of do a broad perspective and realize what exactly has been going on. Uh, and, I actually grew up with some weight issues myself, so I can very much relate to it. I have not needed the GLPs a lot. I have been using a very small dose of the newer one. It's a GLP-3. Uh, I've been using it more for the inflammatory issues, and it also increases metabolism a little bit. So a peptide is typically 3 to 51 amino acids bound together. And so once you get larger than that, eventually it becomes a protein. And amino acid is basically just the smallest molecule of the beginnings of a protein. And peptides, insulin's a peptide, growth hormone's a peptide, oxytocin, even HCG, which is what, when a woman is pregnant, she's releasing tons of that once that starts.
And they're precursors, or they tell your body to do something, right? It's not like the peptide is doing something, it's telling your body to do something, right?
Right. It's sending a signal each time. Like a growth hormone secretagogue, one of the things that it does is it actually communicates to the pituitary gland to release more growth hormone.
Okay. So it's not a growth hormone, it's
No,
just,
no.
yeah.
You can, again, growth hormone is a peptide, but that is the actual hormone that's being released by the pituitary gland. Whereas you can send a peptide that actually speaks to the pituitary gland to release that. And that would be called a growth hormone releasing peptide.
Okay, got it. So let's go into just some more that are popular, because I know there's some wild ones out there, like the one that will make you look tan, and there's also some funky ones. But what are some more of kind of the basics if people were looking at healing something, whether it's gut or whether it's inflammation, which I think inflammation is a pretty common issue with people? What are maybe some of those?
So again, as you mentioned, there are so many, but like TB4 or TB500, which they are two different peptides. They're often kind of thrown into the same. They have a pretty similar mechanism, but they're working very specifically to muscle tissue. Interestingly, you can do a bolus dose and it actually kind of wakes up some of your neonatal stem cells, so it can be highly regenerative.
Wow.
But it actually comes from the thymus.
What is a bolus dose? Like a big one?
Yeah. So I'm careful with doses because I don't want to, suggest someone, but most people are going to be using micrograms to, like a milligram or so. But if you do a larger bolus dose, multiple milligrams, it can do that, which can go really well with if you're using something like exosomes, which is another signaling molecule that's sent from the stem cell. But even just at a bare minimum, if you're wanting to reduce inflammation, you could do a combination of like BPC-157 or TB500, which those two are the first two that I used when I tore my bicep. So highly healing. And another thing I love about TB500 is it's very helpful for cardiac tissue, which is also a muscle. So you have a patient that's dealing with some heart problems, that could very potentially help with that progression of healing.
Awesome. What else? Are there any? I'm trying to think if there were any. What about like the copper one, the skin one? What do you think?
GHKCU. So that it's interesting. It's a copper peptide. So one thing I try to really point out is like, make sure that you're still getting in zinc, because copper and zinc, they actually they battle for each other for being properly utilized.
Mm-hmm.
And so you want to do like zinc morning or a GHKCU in the evening, or vice versa. But it's interesting, like we have a certain amount of levels of that when we're younger, and as we get older, much like many things, they start to drop. But it has a ton to do with just collagen synthesis and turnover, regenerating tissue, skin, hair, nails. And it's another one that is just highly powerful at reducing inflammation. So, even those three together, you can actually get some through the pharmacies that I use where they all come together. But GHKCU is one that most of my women, they love it because they do notice that their skin's looking better. But it's just also powerful for anti-aging, because as we get older and all these levels start dropping off, replacing it is going to slow down that aging process.
And so it's like you're on a peptide protocol, and then you can't necessarily be on it forever for life, but do they stop working once you stop taking them, or what? How does that look like long term? Some of these.
Well, I mean, obviously levels will slowly go back down. Uh, at the same time, the results don't just immediately drop off. So when you're using peptides, a lot of time, like we kind of like to use like a year-long plan where you're probably gonna, even if you're fine, you might want to use those a couple times a year. GHKCU you can stay on a little bit longer term, but my suggestion is typically always to kind of cycle them off and on because obviously price matters. Injecting yourself a million times a day is not fun either. So I always we always suggest cycling. We always just will do something for usually about a 3 to 4 month plan, and we'll come with that protocol where we'll stagger the approach, and then we just progressively continue it. And myself and others, I also say like take a break at times because sometimes you just again it's not really natural to inject yourself constantly. So usually like December, I'll take 3 to 4 weeks off from doing anything at all.
So now we're talking about all these, we're talking about complexities and protocols and cycling and all of that stuff. So people should probably have a coach of some sort and not just go buy this stuff on the internet. Do you want to talk a bit about safety and just your take on that?
So, I mean, I always want to be very clear and authentic. Like I started off using websites myself because I mean, they weren't even available by a pharmacy. But back then there was also like two websites and it was much clearer that they were pure. And now, as you've probably noticed, it's blown up. I mean, everybody has a website and the website that I used to use is actually called Peptide Sciences. They've since shut down, but there came a point where you started seeing some results where it was showing it was not as pure as you thought they were. So the source matters a lot because there can be things like endotoxins or solvents. And I think most people are probably trying to do it the very best they can, but it is expensive to test. So you want to make sure that whoever's doing it, they are testing every single batch because you can put a certificate of analysis that says 99.9%. But if it's not getting checked each time, what if you get it from a different source? So it's just challenging. So you do not want the cheapest that you can get. You know, for food, you're wanting to usually buy organic or just the very best. So for me, I will not use a website that I cannot know is 100% exactly what you need. And obviously, you can use AI. I mean, I have quite a few people who will send me, "Hey, what do you think about this stack?" And sometimes it's pretty decent. I mean, I personally have used AI because it helps with structuring it, organizing it. But I've also seen a lot where the dosages are so far off. And then even then, are you reconstituting it with bacteriostatic water correctly? And then another thing that pharmacies do is that they make sure that the pH is actually exactly correct for that peptide to stay bound together. So
I think that the powder
yes,
or
yes. So when you reconstitute the powder, most of the time, if you get that, you're just going to use bacteriostatic water. But some of these peptides, I mean, amino acids are bound together, so they will actually cleave off of each other if it's in the incorrect uh, water, like the
oh,
incorrect pH. My apologies.
yeah.
And even just it needs to be refrigerated long term. And I mean, I've also had some weird scenarios where I was toying around with using a vendor that it looked pretty clear, but then I would get like GHKCU, which is a completely blue powder. There's no other color it should be than blue, and it came in as a non-blue powder. So you know, as a provider, I have to be very careful to make sure that what I'm sending my patient is exactly what it says it is. So even the pharmacies, I take time to vet them and make sure that they're exactly what they say they are. Because I mean, even pharmacies, they're popping up left and right. I'm constantly bombarded by them. But I also try to say there are some websites that they are doing it right. The funny thing is their pricing is typically really close to what we actually are at the clinic as well. Very
Interesting.
similar.
Yeah. So I know there's some websites they'll provide that purity test, but you're saying they could get one test, but all the batches after that should be tested as well. Yeah. Do you know your compounding pharmacy personally? As you're
Do
doing your
yeah.
research, you know the people behind it and everything?
I mean, the ones that I use the most, I'm friends with the owner and I have their phone number. Like the conference, we were at the Immortality conference last week, and I use Optimal Balance Pharmacy the most at this point because I can call that owner at any point if I have a problem, and they do test. I mean, and he talks about it. There's a lot of things that we're asking him to bring to the forefront, And he'll say, I can't do that right now because I'm busy testing to make sure that what I already have is pure and the right and exactly what it says it is.
Amazing. So also like doing the blood work first, and so people can go buy stuff online and they can have AI put a protocol together for them. But there is a, I mean, we should be seeing, should we be taking these, right? I mean, when you're looking at blood work, you don't just give a peptide that they want, right? It's like, what do you need? So I imagine that's part of the benefit of working with somebody.
Yeah. I mean, some of these peptides, you're not going to see a massive change on the blood work. Some of them could be a little taxing on different organs. So that's why you also want to cycle them. But it's also, what are you trying to achieve with the peptide you're looking at? I mean, something like BPC 157, it's going to reduce inflammation. So doing it a couple times a year it's never a horrible idea. But then if you look at some of the other ones, you have to just know, why are you doing it? Are you just wanting to play with all of them? But that's where we come up with a plan. Like, I had one of my case studies over the weekend. I did a full year with her, and a lot of the ones I've already talked about, we absolutely use those. But there's another one called epithelion that it's helpful with regenerating the brain. There's something called telomeres that has a lot to do with length of life, and it's supposed to lengthen the telomeres. But it's also it's helping to keep that brain vital. And so using that a couple times a year can be very good. And most of that comes from like Eastern European studies. So we don't have a lot of those in the US. But I've followed a lot of longevity experts. I started liking them when I was in my 20s. And you actually see how their brains are still functioning and amazing. And it's another one that you do actually notice it, because it actually helps with resetting your circadian rhythm and melatonin synthesis. And so when you do it, you actually notice you're sleeping deeper, you're sleeping longer. So some of these things, you actually feel them. And again, if you're going to come with like a year-long plan, you need to sort of come with an approach with, how am I going to stagger this? How am I going to put each one in the right spot? And you have to also be ready to kind of customize it, because things come up, right? Like, I had a patient who, we had this big plan for him, and then he tore his bicep. And so suddenly we have to put the brakes on and really shift over to a completely different program. And all of our focus went into healing. So we did the BPC, the GHKCU, the TB500. We did another one called KPV, which helps a lot with inflammation. But then we even did some that helped with his mitochondria, because obviously when you have all the inflammation, all the swelling, everything's going to be dysfunctioning. And then we also added in something called pentosan, which is really helpful with regenerating cartilage. It's actually not a peptide, and it's more used in veterinary circles, even more in Australia, but it's extremely powerful. And then we also injected him with the exosomes that I mentioned earlier. And we got to see him at the conference, and he showed us his arm and his bicep, and he didn't even lose muscle mass, which is kind of unheard of when you get a bicep repair. And so it's just amazing to see what regenerative medicine does. But you also have to know, I can have a plan. Again, you could use AI to kind of come with one of those game plans, but you also have to be ready to pivot when life happens, because obviously it's going to keep coming.
Yeah. Are there contraindications, or like, I'll say honestly, I had a reaction to a peptide, not one that you gave me, but one I used more recently with CJC, which is a pretty normal one. But man, like, my tongue swelled up. I got hives all over my body. I was tingling in my palms and the bottom of my feet. It was like one of those. I took some Benadryl and wrote it out, but I was really close to going somewhere as my tongue was swelling up. But I had taken protocols of it before, and all of a sudden one day it's just like, we're not doing this anymore.
Had you switched courses or anything?
Different. Well, I had done the same company for many weeks, and then all of a sudden, same bottle, didn't change the bottle or anything. So I don't know. It's weird.
We do see that sometimes, where someone just suddenly has a reaction to a peptide, which usually that means you should definitely take a break. And it's usually suggesting, like, I usually suggest like a Pepsid, which is an H2. It's also a histamine blocker, and just see how you respond to it. But there are some times where you're on a peptide and suddenly that peptide is no longer for you. But I've also had it where the source was the problem. But I mean, obviously for you, like that, you clearly had a large histamine response. But with CJC 1295, it's actually pretty normal to feel a flushing effect, or you could even feel like a little bit of like heart racing temporarily. But if the throat is closing up, then yeah, you're having an actual allergic reaction. But that, I mean, it's really hard to predict that. Uh, there could definitely be like if there's some gut stuff going on where you're just already making a lot of histamine, you could have a larger reaction. But the biggest contraindications is usually, do we have some sort of active cancer or tumor, something like that, active infection. Like if you have an active infection, you're probably not going to necessarily be on a growth hormone secretagogue because it technically can raise your blood glucose a little bit. Less likely to be a problem, but cancer's our biggest one, or if there's a history of cancer, we're going to be a little more careful with the ones that actually have some anabolic properties to them.
Are there any that actually help cancer or?
There are some, yeah. I mean, there's a lot. Like that was one of the, or at least for sure, like small compounds. It's just you have to be very careful with obviously cancers when you always have to be really careful with, but there are definitely some different compounds that they uncouple the mitochondria actually. So if you have a lot of the cancer cells, they proliferate much faster than our normal cells, and they're actually not functioning quite as effectively. So they're more likely to die off. So something like a mitochondrial uncoupler can be helpful. And I'm just thinking outside of the box, which there's not a bunch of peptides I would say this is going to cure cancer. It's more of some of the other small compounds, like it's called BAM15, that can be really helpful. Uh,
I know.
and I'm not treating cancer at this point. We are working on some protocols. So I'm just hesitant. I always want to speak from experience and not just the things I've been reading. We are actually working on some protocols to potentially help with cancer. We're just very careful with it. I will say, like, I have some patients that had leukemia. And so I've used something called thymosin alpha 1 because a lot of time their immune system is just suppressed afterwards. And by using thymosin alpha 1, it actually can help with boosting the immune system to kind of come back to a homeostasis. So there are definitely some to help post or even just helping with the inflammation. TB500 and BPC, like they can help with like angiogenesis, which is going to help with actually having blood vessels growing. So those are the ones you want to be a little careful with if you have a known tumor. A lot of it comes down to speculation. There's not any known cancers that have been caused by peptides at this point.
Okay. Yeah, it's new territory. One of your speakers was pretty forward about.
Yes, Jacob is
He was at an
absolutely.
event I was at last night, so I had a really long conversation with him. It's very interesting.
Yeah, and we're working with him to be able to just speak better on it. I want to speak from experience, and so there's a lot of compounds that have potential for doing that, and that BAM15 is one that we're looking a lot at. There's another one. It's a small molecule. It's called SLU-PP, and it increases metabolism, and it's somewhat a workout mimetic, among many other things that it does. But the combination of those two can be very powerful with helping with cancer. And then there's even just some that they're barely heard of. They can help with killing tumors. Uh, and those ones you definitely want to make sure you're working with someone who has done all the studying, worked with people that knows how to do it. And that's why when we feel comfortable, we will definitely take on some cases, but we will be working closely with those that have already done it.
Yeah. Well, we'll leave it at like there's stuff on the horizon, that there's
Yes,
hope and research
there
being
are
done.
people definitely curing cancers with different molecules, peptides included.
Amazing. All right, so I want to pivot away. We've talked a lot about peptides. What else is kind of in your toolbox? I know you mentioned hormones, so we can talk about that a little bit, but what else is in your toolbox of what you help heal people with?
So, I mean, hormones is definitely a big one. Perimenopause is becoming a bigger and bigger issue, which I do believe a lot of it has to do with just stress and society, because it's much more normal for a female to be going through that kind of thing much later in life, at least, sixth decade or on, and we're seeing women in their 30s. So, you know, versus like progesterone, if it's low, then a female's most likely going to be feeling a lot more anxiety because it actually works. It's obviously not a benzodiazepine like Xanax, but it works sort of similar by binding to the GABA receptor. So if a woman's low in progesterone, they may be waking up in the middle of the night, mind racing, and they don't know what's going on. They don't feel like themselves. And by replacing it or finding ways to help them boost their own production, they're sleeping better at night. They're calmer. They're able to take better care of their family. But even if a female is low on testosterone, there's going to be less dopamine signaling and just less motivation, less drive. So those
Are
two
you,
are essential. What's
are you
that?
not Are you saying it's not the moon cycle out there? It's going to be our own cycle. We should go see you, not blame it on the moon.
Yeah, I mean, strangely, I do think that when we were, living outside, women's cycles did tend to cycle up with the moon, and just there's quite a bit of data on that. But now, I mean, we're completely disconnected from nature.
Yeah, I don't mean like the cycle with the moon, but like sometimes like we just had a full moon in Sagittarius, so it was like, oh, it's anxiety, stress, woke up in the middle of the night, whatever. But if it's like consistent with every full moon and new moon, then it's probably like I should probably call Dodge.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I do think there's a time that blood work is definitely indicated just to see what's going on. I mean, even like the ratio of estrogen to progesterone makes a big difference. I mean, estrogen's, it's essential. Like it's kind of termed as like the Wi-Fi for the brain. Like they both progesterone. I mean, all three of them have to do with mood. And then even if you're replacing it, you're trying to mimic what nature's been doing for your whole life. So it's complicated. But I do just suggest if you're going to try, if you're having these issues and blood work shows progesterone's low, estrogen's low, testosterone's low, work with someone that is willing to you have to just meticulously and slowly play with those doses until just a woman's feeling like themselves. And the labs show that we are at least at appropriate values
Mhm.
to continue living.
So should people be having issues, or is it like, hey, you're 35 now, you should go get your hormones checked? Like, what do you recommend for women
I
or
think it's a
men?
good idea to get blood work done at least once a year. Because I mean, if you knew what your levels were like in your 20s and you have that data to follow, it's going to be really helpful whenever you go in and the doctor says your labs look fine. You're like, well, I have this data point to show that my estrogen levels used to be a lot higher. So you know, usually a symptom is going to be what brings a female in most of the time. There could be like vaginal dryness or just ongoing issues like that you're going to be like, something's wrong. And then you need to find someone who's at least going to listen to you. Because a lot of like, if you go to an OB/GYN, they may check them and they say, well, you're going through menopause. So good luck. Or they're just going to say it's normal. But if you look at those ranges, that range is massive. Like, I think in luteal phase, it's normal to be like 50 to like 160. I'm making that up slightly just because I'm always looking at the actual data points, but you have to like look at the female. What's actually happening? How are they feeling? And as a man who is not a female, my biggest job is to listen, to listen to you extensively. Men are quite a bit easier because I will sometimes, thyroid matters, but testosterone is usually the biggest factor there. Although I do actually put some men on very, very low doses of progesterone because of the anxiety aspect. If they're not sleeping at night, I mean, we do make a little bit of progesterone. So it can be really powerful with just a more natural anxiety relief.
Yeah. I remember it's over a year ago when I did a protocol with you. And at the time, was it a year or 2 years? Maybe now, 2 years ago, I think. And yeah. And you said, well, I'm not a woman, so I can't really speak on that. But it sounds like you're getting a lot of women and you've done a lot more education and focus in that direction.
Well,
Is that
even then, I was doing females hormones. I always want to say, I think men like to tell women how they're feeling in their body. And, from my own mistakes and otherwise, I have to say, y'all are completely different creatures. So yes, I need to be educated. Yes, I need to know what the data shows. I need to know what different ways we can adjust. But I'm not here to tell you how you're feeling in your body, which that's a mistake that I think a lot of clinicians make.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Okay, so and I also remember from my protocol that you did have on there like watch the sunrise and do vagal toning through breath work or whatever. So let's kind of just move into, and we've talked about some of that already, but for
Sure.
you personally, and I know you went through, a phase where you were building the business and it was all for money, but now you have a different balance to life. Let's talk about that and how you are now, and like what's your routine or protocol that you have for yourself?
So, I have a 6 month old. So I kind of have to go with an 80/20. Like at this time, a lot of time I'm sleeping in a little later because I'm working with him to be able to sleep through the night. And it's a little challenging. But mornings, I'm going to get up and I'm going to find things I'm grateful for. That I'm successful about that 90% of the time. I'm going to pray. I'm going to think of my blessings. And then I'm going to move my body in some way. Like today, I did not wake up in time to run to the gym, but I have a green belt. So I went walking. I just kind of put away the screens and I just enjoyed that. So I moved my body in that way. And then I'm typically going to start with some sort of breath work. I'm not someone who does these big, deep, advanced protocols. If it's indicated, I will definitely do like Wim Hof or other things like that. But it's just consistently training to maintain resiliency. Sometimes it's a cold shower, and then it's connecting with my family. So usually I'm going to go to Archie and spend a little bit of time with him. And depending on what's going on my day, sometimes I'm going into some writing, my expression. I love music. So I kind of just have each day is a little different, but I do always find I focus on the things that are going to center me first thing in the morning. And then obviously focusing on whole food. And then like Tuesdays and Thursdays, that's when I'm seeing patients. So I'm doing all that pretty quickly in the morning. And then I'm in the calls. At lunchtime, I'm usually going to go sit outside and eat just to kind of get away from my screens, focus, kind of get back to center. And then when we go evenings, I'm gonna be with my family again. Before I go see them, I'm usually gonna step outside. I'm taking some deep breaths. I may be doing some humming or singing, and then I go in there just so that I can be as much myself, regulated for them.
Beautiful.
And
Yeah.
we do watch most sunsets.
Awesome. Yeah, because they need to watch it too, right? They need nature just as much as you, kiddos. Yeah. So, do you find you are more successful in your business now that you've found this balance? I mean, overall, is that helping the business, helping besides you and your own sanity and regulation?
Yeah, yeah. By focusing on those other things and teaching it to others, it creates relationships rather than just take these pills, do these injections. It's kind of ongoing. I mean, there are patients that the bigger connection that we have is we'll talk about what's going on in their life. I'm not a therapist, but I will speak to them on trying these different modalities. And by me doing these things for myself, I'm a much more regulated clinician. When I'm out networking, I'm in a better place so that I'm not just a stressed out dodge, not building a relationship. And one thing I spend a lot of time in prayer. I'm not doing 4 to 6 hour meditation circles or anything. I'm not against those things, but throughout the day, it's all day, every day. I'm having a conversation to go back to gratitude, because whenever you're in it and things get stressed out, you get stressed out again. It's all right. What's happening right now? Nothing is wrong. What am I grateful for? And then I go back into my day. And so by teaching that, I do really believe that my patients are improving as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think sometimes the best way we can teach others is to live the whatever it is we're trying to teach, just to be the example.
Living in integrity, it's embodying what you preach, and that is something that I focus on all the time.
Yeah. So I don't know if you feel like it, but we talked about your song and your storytelling. I don't know if how do you feel about sharing that? You said that your like the expression is the healing aspect of a lot of this, right? So I guess just whatever you want to share. We don't need, yeah, whatever you feel called to share. Because I will say my experience of you, Dodge, because I've known you the last, 2, 3, I don't even know how many years now. And you've always been a gentle, divine, masculine, happy, balanced, regulated person, as far as my experience of you, and even emotional. And for a man in our world, that's not always common. So I think your music is part of that, and how you are where you are, and are you fully expressed? Is this healing for you? So I'm asking because I think being that example for other men, that you can express yourself and bleed your heart out there, and share with the world like your truth from a very authentic place, that's a healed man.
Thank you for that. Thank you for seeing me. It's not easy because I'll share and then there's crickets. And I also know that it is very important for me to continue to do that. And the truth is, I used to not do much art, but now I spend so much time. It's my way of alchemizing the stress and heartache or anything that comes along the way. I actually had someone respond to one of my posts the other day and say, "You act like your life is so perfect," and went on. I was like, "Do I?" And what was weird was the video that she responded to. I said, "I struggle." I mean, my life is beautiful. I love it, but yeah, music is my way of alchemy, and it's strange because when it comes through, I'll be frustrated that a new song has not like sort of just evolved. But then out of nowhere, I'll hear a line, and so I'll start singing it, and I just play with it usually over a week or so, and the next thing I know, I have a full song, and then I look at it and I realize that it's very much involved with what's going on in my life. And so I have quite a few, and I do hope to eventually be able to share them more and more as the invitation opens. And I'm also very willing to continue doing what's indicated. But this most recent one, there's just all this stuff on the Epstein files. You see, just a lot of men doing well. When we're not working on our healing, we're chasing something. So we're breaking things. We battle our two biggest battles are lust and anger, and it doesn't go away, but we do need to integrate them and learn how to use them for the better. I mean, Jesus flipped over tables for a reason. So this song, I heard that, and then I'm just thinking about how life comes in circles. Wintertime, I usually want to hide from everybody and I want to go inward. And then spring comes and suddenly it's time to do a lot of doing. And then I just again kind of go back to thinking about prayer and then my kids as they're getting older, and even just how I used to not let my voice out. I would not speak. And I'm saying all this because if you listen to the words, the song I'll sing, each thing speaks to these things. And then even just how I held so many things in, thinking they're going to go away. I'm going to bury them down deeper. And the truth was, I need to let them go and release them. And it's still letting go and surrender every day, right? That's just how it works. So, and just at the end of it all, whenever you start going on like a healing journey, it's really remembering who you are, which there's a million ways you can say it. My favorite is just to say, I have a divine spark inside of me. I have God inside of me. And that is the empowerment. That is to know, like, I do have a reason to be here. I have a calling. And then also knowing I have very little control out of the outcome other than my variables. And that is the trusting the power beyond, trusting God outside of me. And so there's the empowerment, but then there's the absolute humility and the surrender that comes into it. So I've said a lot about this, but I will go into the song now, and I really appreciate you letting me do it. I'm going to turn my head because I actually have it written here just in case I forget, but I have the mic right here. So the sun goes up and the sun goes down, just like a smile turns to a frown. Turn on the news to watch another crown fall down. Turn it back off, you fall to your knees. Let the silence speak. There's something deeper underneath. Going within finds the deeper truth. Hold it close until it roots. Find the spark from within until your fire is going again. In the silence soon you'll see the masterpiece you're meant to be. The tide goes up and the tide goes down. When was the last time you filled your cup? You can't keep pouring from an empty well. Life's a spring, drink till you swell. Add a little salt and magnesium. Take a deep breath, you're whole again. The seasons come and the seasons go. And just like that, you're getting older. Babies having babies. They walk before they crawl. All we ever had was the here and now. Scream if you have to, don't hold it down. Life's a gift, best unwrapped. When it's gone, make sure it's tied.
Oh, so beautiful. Thank you
Thank
so much for sharing. And you tend to get very emotional on the part about the babies,
I do.
having babies, and walk before you crawl. What's going on there?
I told myself I should not have children when I was younger. And so when I sing that part, I just think about my son, or even just seeing my daughter, the way she's always wanting, like, I can't wait to be an adult. I'm like, please take your time. And then my son's barely crawling. He's starting to crawl, but he really just wants to run. And so I don't know. Every time I hit that, I'm like, come on, put motion to the voice, not a tear. But I have not conquered the not cracking on it yet.
Yeah. Well, I've witnessed you on Instagram or whatever, and you definitely are a family man. I can see like the love, super authentic, genuine love for your children and taking on your stepdaughter, and there's no difference. The children are the same, they're yours. And your wife too, being a beautiful husband, and you guys have a beautiful relationship to witness. And I've gotten to have some personal interaction with that part of your.
You have had a very large impact.
Yeah. So we just have a couple minutes left. Is there anything that I should have asked that I didn't ask, or anything you want to share that we didn't get to today?
I mean, we covered a lot.
Mhm.
Nothing's coming to mind right now. I think I want to show up authentically, and I enjoy getting to know you. And yeah, I surrender into what comes next. A big passion I have is just slowly building up a community. But I think some advice for just someone who does have a family and they're wanting to build a business or build a community is remember, like, you don't actually have anywhere to go. So as those babies are little, the dollar's not worth it. So don't miss it. Don't miss out. I'm getting emotional again. It's
I
ridiculous.
know.
But yeah, we tell ourselves a lot of stories. So the key is to be authentic, to show up. And, I've had men who they tell me how they have monopoly money, but then they admit that they spend an evening on Saturday with their kids. And I'm not judging them. I just, if we're here to have a family, what is more important than making sure those children are being brought up and being shown that they are loved and giving them the best experience and the best life that we possibly can? Because that's what creates the trickle. You know, I believe, like, living in love, joy, and gratitude, like, it does work outward. But if you're not showing that to your kids, then you're going to have traumatized kids that have to work through all their things. And that takes a toll on society and humanity. So
Yeah, let's save them from that healing journey. And you can't be a perfect parent, but you can be a great parent, and you'll be there for them when they do need to do whatever healing they need to do.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I love that you said there's nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. There's literally nowhere to go. Like the eternal present moment is where we should spend most of our time. And that's very good advice. And I will reflect back to you, our offer, that woman that wrote on your post. That's just her. It's her projection. There's something going on with her. Don't receive that. Don't take that on.
I took it a little bit because I knew her personally, but then I realized that was the second response, and I was just like, she's definitely projecting. But it's an opportunity for me to reflect and even just to let that go. Because if you choose to let your voice be heard, which you definitely should, you're still going to get stones thrown.
Yes. The more you let your voice
Part
be
of it.
heard, you'll probably get more
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. I have one of my coaches. She always tells me, "Oh, you have a new hater? That's good. That means that you're probably on the right path."
Yeah. So let's talk about where can people find your website for the
Cool.
peptides and then your music. I don't know if you have a place or your Substack or something.
Yes, so I have it's WayOLW.com. We are revamping that website, but it is still there. You can still hop on a discovery call. We also have our Instagram, which I'm working to be more and more active with releasing content, and that's WayOLWPM, which stands for Precision Medicine. And I also have my personal Instagram, which is Dodge Feeler. And I do have a Substack, which I am trickling articles into. So I'd love to would love for anyone who wants to take a glance. And then the music, I have a music coach that I think what we're going to probably do is start releasing 2 or 3 songs at a time as I make them. And so hopefully soon that will be out on Spotify or whatever platform she sort of suggests that I release those at. So
And I imagine you put those on your Instagram or something.
I'll definitely release them in some way.
Okay.
So
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom and your heart. More importantly, your heart and authenticity. That's really, I think, what's going to change the world.
yeah, thank you so much for having me on, Melanie. And I just want you to know I'm grateful to know you, and it's a privilege to just have you around. So thank you.
Well, it's mutual.
So I love you and I appreciate you.
I agree, and I love you so much. Thank you. This has been a call to healing. I hope this conversation with Dodge Feeler stirred some emotion in you. We talked about some practical uses of healing tools for wellness, but I do feel experiencing human emotion and the full expression is one of the most healing experiences we can have. A Call to Healing is sponsored by Senavida, a platform helping practitioners spend more time in service and less time in the back office. Until next time, I'm Melanie, and I hope you have a beautiful day.